because you'll quite likely want to use it this evening on the Mother of All Talkshows.
Controversial conversation and cutting-edge current affairs comment with the notorious B.I.G.G. The Mother of All Talkshows with George Galloway on talkRADIO. Listen, this guy's a nightmare. He's not a great guy, folks.
Well, I was going to start off by covering the front page of the Times. When I say going to, I mean I made a decision 4 or 5 minutes ago so to do, but such is the flow of dramatic news, both on the domestic and the international levels, that I've probably come on to a Plan C. I'll tell you later what Plan A was and what I meant by Plan B and the front page of the Times. Let me begin with Plan C. The Prime Minister of Lebanon has been apparently taken hostage in Saudi Arabia. He went there on a state visit, and the next his people saw of him was blinking into the camera like a hostage, reading out pre-prepared words, resigning from his position as the Prime Minister of Lebanon. Since when, it appears, he has been incarcerated in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. You could make a great movie out of this, about which more later. In the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh are the richest people on the earth. And it's not Hotel California, it's Hotel Saudi Arabia. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. There's Prince Walid, the owner of Disneyland, part owner of Sky and Fox News, owner of Twitter, or at least significant part owner of Twitter, one of the richest men on the earth. He's checked in to the Hotel Saudi Arabia, and he can't get out. And neither can sundry princes. At the last count, 20 Saudi royal princes are checked in, but can't check out of Hotel Saudi Arabia. I tried, roughly on the back of an envelope, to work out the net worth of the current residents of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh, but I had to give up because I had to come in here to do the show. The sum is simply too large. Now, I wouldn't ordinarily treat you to the travails of such people as Prince Walid. I have nothing to say, really, about him, except that has been followed by a declaration of war by Saudi Arabia on Lebanon, a tiny country on the Mediterranean, next door to Syria, and always, at least in my lifetime, a powder keg waiting to blow up. What could possibly go wrong? The Saudis, encouraged by Donald Trump, have declared war on Lebanon. And Lebanon is ready to fight back. So I said just half an hour ago, Saudi Arabia would be well advised to row back from this declaration of war, because it will not end any better for them than their declaration of war against Iraq, against Libya, against Syria, against Yemen, against Qatar, and against a significant proportion of their own population. All of this has been caused by the coming to power of a 31-year-old crown prince who is widely believed to be running the country and running the country's involvement in all of those wars. Now, I wouldn't normally spend, at least on this platform, as much time adumbrating what I just have, except it turns out that Saudi Arabia has entered into a pact with Israel to launch an attack on Lebanon which may begin this evening, whilst I'm on the air. How about that then? The Turkish coup took place on a Friday night while I was on the air. All kinds of dramatic things occur whilst I'm on the air. And whilst that's good for radio, it's usually not good for the people on the receiving end of those dramatic events. I'll keep you posted on that. But if it doesn't happen in the next 3 hours, the chances of it happening in the next 3 days are very, very high indeed. Now, on the subject of dramatic things happening whilst I'm on the air, if you were listening to me in my emergency stand-in for the great James Whale on Wednesday, you'll know that I had scarcely finished my invective, my denunciation of the peregrinations of Priti Patel when she resigned from the cabinet. Now, I said on Wednesday, there's much more to this than meets the eye. And therefore, the Times has kindly teed me up. I can't get into trouble, can I, for saying this? Because, hey, the Times is our sister paper. So here's the story in the Times. This is the lead story in the Times, top of page 1. Supporters of Priti Patel accused pro-Palestinian ministerial colleagues last night of stoking damaging stories about the secret Israeli meetings that led to her resignation. It goes on. Backers of the former International Development Secretary suspect the Foreign Office Minister, Sir Alan Duncan, of having the, quote, means and the motivation, unquote, to brief details of the meetings which were held without Downing Street or the Foreign Office being told. It goes on and on and on page 1 and carried over inside. So I cannot forswear telling you what might be behind that. Who is Sir Alan Duncan? Well, I've known him for a very, very long time. When he's been up in politics and when he's been down. Currently, he's very much up. He was in the frame to be the government chief whip when Sir Michael Fallon, unfortunately, fell on his sword, if you get my drift. Alan Duncan is a senior minister in the Foreign Office. And where might you have heard his name before? Well, if you watched the Al Jazeera documentary, which probably not as many of you as ought actually have done, you'll remember that Sir Alan Duncan was the government minister that a quote-unquote diplomat from the Israeli embassy was caught on camera, a secret up-the-jumper camera, caught an Israeli diplomat in London plotting, and I quote, him, to bring Alan Duncan down, unquote. And what were the means by which they were going to bring Alan Duncan down? A sex scandal. A gay sex scandal, the diplomat specified. Now, I'm not sure what that gay sex scandal would have been, because Alan Duncan is and was an out gay man, a brave one, the first Conservative MP ever to openly declare that he was gay. I'm not sure how this Israeli diplomat, now blaming Alan Duncan for bringing down Priti Patel, I'm not sure what kind of a sex scandal it could have been. Maybe they would have placed him in a bedroom situation with someone that he oughtn't to be with. Now, that's what our government's come to. It is alleged on the front page of the Times that the Foreign Office Minister, Alan Duncan, caused the overthrow of the International Development Secretary, Priti Patel. And even if that is true, and I have no knowledge whatever as to whether it's true or false, I'm only going by the Times, the paper of record. If it's true, what's Theresa May going to do about it? Precisely nothing, because Theresa May can scarcely tie her shoelaces at this point in time. Theresa May is the most gormless, hopeless, pitiful, pitiable Prime Minister that Britain has ever had. I mean ever had. I mean, I don't care how far back you go in parliamentary history, you will not find a sadder sack than the current occupant of number 10 Downing Street. And then there's the other story on the front page of the Times. Here's the headline: Cameron lobbies for £500 million deal with China. Ex-PM may take job in Friends Investment Fund. He's off on the Tony Blair road. The revolving door has turned, and a Prime Minister still in his prime is now set for decades of such £500 million deals. I mean, actually, the money he'd make from that would rival Tony Blair's King's ransom of £100 million in 8 years. David Cameron has certainly hit the ground running. But let me ask you this. Did David Cameron pursue policies towards China, on China, about China, when he was Prime Minister, with half an eye to the day when he might be lobbying for a £500 million deal with China? If you believe the answer to that is no, I have a bridge here in London that I could sell you at a knockdown price. And the last story on the front page of the paper of record, the Times, has a picture of Kevin Spacey, though I must say the transformation in him in this picture is utterly remarkable. And it says, Spacey to be wiped from new movie. Kevin Spacey's Hollywood career was in tatters yesterday as the director Ridley Scott announced that he would begin reshooting scenes from a finished film to erase the actor 6 weeks before its release in the cinemas. And it goes on and on, as these scandals seem to be going on and on. Just before taking the microphone, I discover that a Labour MP has just announced that she has been harassed for 20 years by another Labour MP. Kelvin Hopkins, it appears, has been peppering her with postcards, Christmas cards, letters, and entreaties of love. I know nothing at all as to the truth or otherwise of that. I'm just going to say, if a member of Parliament is not capable in 20 years of asking her parliamentary colleague to cease and desist sending her billet doux, what kind of member of Parliament do we have? And why deliver that news to us now? Curiouser and curiouser. All of it. This is the mother of all talk shows.